Hey, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm Daniel. This is Nate. We're bringing you another episode of Seven Figure Music School, and we are entering another installment in the Culture Club series that Nate and I started over a month ago now. I got to be honest, when I initially thought about doing a series of 6, I thought to myself, is that going to be a bit too much? It ended up actually becoming a series of 7 because that first episode, we just defined what it was going to be. And I would definitely recommend going back and listening to that first one because that's where we really define what culture is. But Nate, I've been very happy with how this series has played out because each episode has really felt like it's its own thing. As I've gone back and reviewed the old episodes, I haven't thought, oh, we're kind of saying the same thing over and over again, just in different ways. It hasn't felt like that to me, which just as a creator, I want to be proud of the work that I do. I'm actually really happy with how this is turning out. And we're going to do another installment today. And once again, it is another facet of culture, but a very, very different topic than what we've been talking about so far. And in kind of bringing this up and opening the episode this way, what I want to say is that in reminding folks of what culture is, it is the values and beliefs and things that hold a team together or a family together or an organization together. And so by the very definition of that, it is going to permeate everything. And that's why there's been such varied topics across the last 5 episodes. And we obviously have a different one today.
Yeah.
Nate, go ahead.
I was going to say, thinking about what we've done so far, Daniel, I totally agree that each episode has been unique. And also each episode has been really action oriented, which is, I think, especially important with culture, because culture can feel like one of these really abstract sort of floaty ideas that, maybe you get through a couple chapters of a book on and then you get bored and you don't finish it. And so, like, even today, it's like, it's not, here's what, communicating consistently is all about. It's, here's 5 ways that we try to do it. It's like, so you're going to leave today with at least a couple of action items that you'll be like, okay, I'm going to test these suckers out in the next 30 days.
Okay. And I will just even add one more piece onto that and just point out that this is one of those things that people say they want, or they're not sure how to define it for themselves, but they never do it. And the reason why is this. If you don't show up and teach a lesson for your student, or you don't hire teachers to teach students for you, then the business doesn't happen. If you don't send out invoices, the business doesn't happen. If the sink breaks in the bathroom, the only bathroom in your school, and it doesn't get fixed, it makes it very difficult to run the business. If you're not taking attendance, it makes it difficult to run the business. If you go 20 years in your school and never sit down and write a mission statement or define a clear school purpose or create a core values document or even think through your core values, guess what? You could teach lessons for 20 years and no one would know, but you're going to struggle in that business. And oftentimes the problems that we see owners have is because they're not doing the work that's tough to define, but they can get away with not doing it. And if I had to come up with what's probably really near the top of the list of things that is most important, but also the easiest to overlook, this topic right here is I would put it right at the top of that list.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, we're like, what are we, more than halfway through this current year with the Founders Forum. And every month is like a fascinating reflection. It's like, what is the actual value of the forum? Because there's a whole bunch of exercises we're doing, and we're like constantly building systems and all that stuff. But I really think you're touching on one of the most important pieces that I've observed so far in the forum, is that we're getting people to take a good hard look at those things that they've been avoiding.
Yes.
For a number of years in their business, and not willfully avoiding, because you're not suggesting that.
Yeah.
They've been avoiding because those direct expense items or those direct revenue generators, i.e., teaching more lessons or hiring more teachers to teach more lessons, without really thinking about a values and purpose driven hiring system, for example.
Mm.
They avoid that piece, right? But they're still doing all the essentials to grow, a good sized business. But they're stuck at a certain stage of growth. And what I'm seeing in the forum that I'm loving is I'm seeing a lot of members of the forum that are saying, I am so happy that I'm finally getting to this piece.
And I just have to say before we dive into the content of the episode or the meat of the episode, and I've been saying this in some of the past podcasts, but we are a few weeks away from July 1st as of this air date. And as I've mentioned the past few episodes, we are currently pre-enrolling for the next round of the Founders Forum, and we are offering early bird pricing right now to anyone who joins. And the early bird is actually less than full price was last year. Usually people raise these prices every year. We want to attract and work with as many of our really loyal listeners, and we do have a loyal fan base here, a really loyal listener base. We want to offer this to you all to work with us for a year. And I want to just touch on what Nate said there. One of the things in the forum, and one of the things that I've experienced when I've been in a mastermind or some group like this, some high level group where I'm surrounded by other real go-getters like me, is the accountability of doing the work. I actually personally joined a coaching program earlier this year, in March of this year. And I found myself, even in the few weeks, it's a year-long program as well, just like the Founders Forum. And this was something I want to do for my personal development and my continued professional development. And I found myself in the first few weeks doing things that I knew intellectually that I should have been doing already. But just being in this and being surrounded by other people who were also doing that work, it just provided that extra motivation and support. And what I will say is that's the other piece that I want to talk about before we kind of jump into today's topic, is that it isn't as if we're just holding you accountable. We're also giving you the tools and then actually doing the work alongside of you around all these areas of the business where you kind of have these feelings of guilt of like, oh, I know I should be doing that. Oh, I know I should be building SOPs better. Oh, I know I should create a much more robust hiring funnel. Oh, I know I should be keeping that marketing dashboard. Oh, I know I should be doing the core values, the stuff that they're talking about. Oh, I just feel so guilty. I should be doing that. I'll get to it when I have some time later this year. And of course, we're all adults here. We know what that means. It's just adulthood is just saying, oh, I'm going to get to that next week for the rest of your life until you die. But in the forum, people are actually doing it. And I'm not going to name her by name, but there is a client in the forum right now where when she joined last fall, the questions she was asking and what she was struggling with in the school was very evident by the things that she was bringing up in the live Q&As. It was very evident by the work that we were seeing this particular person do. And now, late spring, summer of 2025, in one of our last shares, the level of sophistication that I heard out of this owner, who I've known for many years and has worked with me in other capacities in the past, just the things she was saying about her school and the decisions she was making was so different than last fall. It's almost, I mean, it is the same person. And I think it's maybe a bit of an exaggeration to say that it sounds like a completely different person, but this is not the person who joined us last fall. It's remarkable. And I'm seeing this across the entire member base, just these radical changes, different ways of thinking, more sophisticated ways of thinking, more owner sounding, founder sounding ways of thinking. So
Yeah.
anyway, like I said, we're giving that early bird pricing to those who enroll before July 1st. If you're tired of figuring everything out on your own, if you want to stop reinventing the wheel and start building the kind of business that doesn't depend entirely on you, this is the place to do it. Our new cohort begins October 1st, and we'll be sending announcements out about early bird pricing all throughout the month of June, as you've already probably been getting them. The best way to make this happen is to go to growyourmusicstudio.com/forum, and you can find a way to book a call with me and Nate there, and we can talk about whether you're a good fit or not. Anyway, Nate, that's enough about that. Let's jump in to culture and talk about consistent communication.
What it means to communicate consistently your values and purpose, your why, as we talked about it in earlier episodes. And you should absolutely go back and listen to we've got 5 so far, right? You should absolutely
Yeah.
go back and listen to them if you haven't yet. But the simple definition of purpose, as you put it, is that it's sort of your elevator pitch of why your school exists, the differentiation between your school and every other school in your community. And so, one of the things we're going to talk about is just how you actually communicate that, both internally and externally. Like,
I just want to put this in the context of what we've said before. Okay, so if you have been following along, as we said, you've made core values, you've made guidelines for your staff, you've gone to all this trouble to do that, you've made a purpose statement for your school, you've been doing all these things that we talk about. You've made an annual plan, which we talk about on a yearly basis. Shocker. And have for the last 3 years of this podcast has been in existence. And we'll probably talking about it again at the end of this fourth year, too. You've made quarterly plans. The problem with most owners is even if they go to all the trouble to do that, if you just say it once, it means nothing. Every part of your company has to have these things, these culture elements baked into it. Tell me more about that.
well, the way it was taught to me, and then what I've sort of learned over the 15 years so far at the factory, is that it's one thing to declare something, it's another thing to model that thing, and then it's another thing to convince others that it's worthy of paying attention to. And so, you've heard me say this before on the pod, but one of my mentors said, Nate, you have to repeat your values so often that your team is basically rolling their eyes. They're like, here goes Nate and Pira again, talking about be the best version of yourself, or
Mm,
discover everyone's story, or check your ego at the door. He's like, basically, that's one of your most important jobs as a founder, is to be
mm,
like, these are the principles from which we work. These are the values that frame every choice, whether it's in
mm,
the classroom or it's outside of the classroom and operating the program. So, number one, you got to repeat yourself because we're living in a really noisy world.
mm.
And so it's noisy when your teachers are outside of your school, and then it can be equally noisy within the school. Like you see a teacher sitting in the waiting room staring at their phone the whole time, and you're like, wow, this person isn't even present. They're
Mm.
like doom scrolling on Instagram when they could be talking to a student. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, so it's a noisy world. So the first place that they need to start to want to pay attention is you, the founder, around these values and this purpose. So you got to repeat yourself way more than you think you are right now, like 10x what you're currently doing,
Right.
right?
And
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 then,
again, this
yeah,
is for the purpose of baking the culture into the school. That's what the consistent communication piece is about. Keep
yes,
talking. Keep going. I just
yeah,
wanted to make that point.
right? So you have to repeat yourself so often that you inspire a core group of teachers and staff to believe in what you're trying to build as a community. And then what we'll notice is that core group of teachers and staff begin to sound a little bit like you. They sound a little bit like they're like, hey, they're kind of almost parroting what I feel like I've been going blue in the face repeating over and over and over and over, right? And then that's when you begin to get that ripple effect, right? And that's the key. The key is you're looking for that inflection point where it's not just you on the soapbox being like, shouting through your mega, whatever, like the bullhorn, trying to get everybody's attention. But instead, you're modeling those values and purpose, you're speaking and communicating them, and then you're inspiring others to do the same. Once you hit that magic moment in your school, then you will really be breaking through to another stage of growth, because culture is actually what propels that kind of growth that we've seen, from like 250 students to 400, 500, because you're not getting there on your own. So you're staying hyper focused on the places where you matter, and this is one of those places.
A couple thoughts. Just even what Nate said right there, getting to 400, 500, 700,000 students. That doesn't happen by accident. And there's a lot that has to go right to make that happen. But undergirding it all, what's going to build the kind of retention that allows you to go there is having mission partners with you. No one gets into orbit on the space shuttle without a crew of people. And the same thing is true of a school. you not get to those larger sizes or higher margins, or have rabid fans of your school, and I'm talking the families, of course, without that culture being baked in. And again, you as a leader shouldn't try to crowdsource the culture from your staff or put your finger up to the wind to see where the wind's blowing to see what the culture should be. You have to own this vision. So that's the first part. And it really just leads into the second thing that I uniquely wanted to add to this episode, Nate, because again, we see eye to eye on a ton, but we also have slightly different perspectives as well. And this isn't a counter perspective. Our two perspectives fit right together, and it's this: when you live from your mission, it makes this becomes easy. I won't say it makes it easy because of the second part of this. This becomes easy when you live for your mission, because then it's just about the discipline of doing what Nate's about ready to describe, putting all these communication pieces in place, or making those core values or those decision-making guidelines, or as we said in some of those previous episodes, defining what the symbols and rituals and stories are for your school, or even defining what your school purpose is. When you live from mission, when you're very clear on what it is that you want the culture to be, then it's just about the discipline of doing those things and then communicating it consistently. If you have no mission, or you aren't living from it, or you're not sure what it is, so you're just borrowing someone else's, this is doubly hard because you're having to make it up or you're copying someone else's, and then you're having to have the discipline to then consistently say something that you deep down really don't believe. And so again, this only works if you go back to episodes 1 and 2 and you truly understand what culture is and you truly understand how to begin to define it for yourself first, because you can only be a leader when you're actually leading people towards something.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm gonna give you a couple of examples, because I think we dive straight in now to the meat of the matter of the what's. But to your point, this isn't hard, right? It's not hard work, i.e., it takes lots of effort. It's only hard in the beginning around trusting that you actually have a vision and you're willing to do the work to clarify it, refine it, and then put it into a succinct message. Right. So, like that, what you're saying, Daniel, those first couple apps that we're talking about, where we talk about a clear definition, et cetera, that's where we have to really put our effort. But what I'm talking about today will not feel hard once you have a clear message. I promise you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally going to do it tonight. Actually, I'm going to go to tactic number 4 because I'm inspired. So I'm moving my number 4 to number 1. Okay. How to communicate consistently. Literally tonight, we have one of our advanced teen shows, right? This is the most advanced teens we have. They've gone through our songwriter's journey. They're done with that. Now they're playing everything from Frank Ocean to whatever it is that all the different tunes they want to collaborate on.
Sure.
But there's a few key points to it. Given that it's Brooklyn Music Factory and that we're all about building community, no student is getting up there and playing alone, right? They're always playing with other students, okay? Second of all, given that it's BMF and that we have busted our ass, basically 95% of the students that are up on that stage have been at Brooklyn Music Factory for, 5+ years, 5 to 10 years. Some of them have been there for longer than 10 years. So, speaking to our purpose, which I've already sort of just hinted at, when we have the gig tonight, I'm going to be back behind the mixing board. I'm going to be dancing in the back of the community room, right? Once in a blue moon, they'll be like, we need a bass player. And I'll be like, let me go scuffle through that. And I'll run up and grab the bass and play with the band. But otherwise, I only have one job. And that's to get up on that mic 2 or 3 times over the course of the evening and to share a few stories about the journeys on this stage and how they mirror or how they beautifully portray our purpose and values. And I will literally communicate things like Be the best version of yourself. Let me tell you a story about Sakir. Let me tell you how he challenged himself over the last year to be the best version of himself so that he could show up and take the organ solo that you just heard him take. That's one of our core values, right? So, communication tactic number one, Daniel, is you take advantage of every event that you have to test out your pitch, your purpose and values pitch. And this is one of those areas that people oftentimes miss the opportunity. They're thinking recital, I need to just get through the logistics. No, 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 no. As you build your systems and operations and you get it to run well, then you as the founder have one role that is more important than any other, or one responsibility rather, and that is to communicate purpose, the why behind it, right? Be very mindful if you're still the kind of MC that just says, wasn't Zakir amazing? Yay, and everyone claps. That means you're lazy, right? You're falling down on the job. You need to be
Yes.
specific and precise and celebrate
Yes.
from a purpose place. You dig?
Yes. Yeah. And I don't want to bring politics into this, but I've been around for a long time and I've seen how politics has changed. And trust me, I'm not getting ready to be controversial, but it has become more evident in recent years that a lot of politicians, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like they speak from the heart like they did when I was a kid. It feels more rehearsed. It feels more fake. And I'm not singling out any single candidate or party or whatever. It all feels like talking points.
Right.
Just like whatever question gets asked, they find a way to bring it back to the talking point they were going to say anyway.
Yes.
This
So,
isn't a bad analogy for what we should be doing. We should be looking to communicate those two or three or four messages over and over and over again. And every event that happens in the school, every performance, everything you observe in your staff, your brain needs to have this like reticular activating system going, looking for how does this show our purpose? How does this show our culture? And you draw out those examples. You have these talking points that you're constantly drawing out. That's how I think about what you're saying there.
yeah, I love it. And it's that you're marrying two things. There's
Yes.
a beautiful human on the stage that has just done something amazing,
Yep.
and
And
you're
we're going to celebrate
marrying,
that.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
celebrating that human and how they and the purpose and values of your school and how you've been able to mentor them, and you're connecting those two things. So it's like it's a moment where you have dual purpose, right? You want to celebrate that person, of course, and you want to celebrate how your school has been supporting that person. But you want to celebrate how the school's been supporting that person in a very specific, defined message. That's the key. Let me just make one other observation about that moment. Okay,
Sure.
I know we've only done one of five, and we're going to finish this episode in 20 minutes. Wait, we're over 20. Okay, but dig it. One of the keys is that you're not just speaking to the parents and the students.
Oh yeah.
Who else is in the room?
Your staff.
Your staff. Your teachers are hearing you. I cannot tell you how often, Daniel, I've had a teacher say, last winter you said something at the gig that has
Mm,
totally stuck with me. And so dig this back to the noisy environment that we mentioned earlier. This is a moment of total engagement by your staff, right? You've got 100%, engagement from them because their
mm.
students are about to take the bandstand. They're about to take the stage. So they're all in. So you're using that moment of full engagement to be like, remember exactly why we are here. It goes way beyond just your single student executing on the thing that they're about to execute on. It goes way beyond that, right? And so this is a beautiful opportunity for that reason too. You're speaking to your staff. So the next action I want you to think about in terms of communicating consistently is when you're in meetings. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you have like department meetings and all staff meetings and tons of different meetings. You just have to think, when do I meet with my staff? When do I meet with my teachers? And there's a few ways that we use meetings to ensure that we're actually um, baking in the purpose and the values,
and thus building culture. I'm just going
and
to keep
totally,
saying it.
yeah, thus building culture, right? Um, so I'm gonna go big to small, right? So number one, when we do our monthly all staff, we've talked about this a bunch. I think you've been to an all staff, maybe, or
I
maybe you came to the tail end of one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember.
nice snacks.
We got
I
good
enjoyed
bagels.
those. Yeah.
It's Brooklyn. Okay, so the first thing is that our all staffs are actually themed when we're preparing the agenda for the all staff, which is a 3-hour meeting broken into like 30-minute items, right? 30-minute chunks. We theme the meeting based on our values. So we'll have a meeting that's discover everyone's story, and it'll be all about, we'll always bring it back. Like the theme is discover everyone's story. And then we'll go in, for example, to, um, we're going to ask everybody to go back into our Slack channel that's dedicated to intentions, setting intentions, right? And we're going to say, I want everybody to go in and reread what you wrote and what one other person wrote from the fall. Let's say from when the season started, right? Read those intentions. And I want you to discover somebody else's intention
Mm.
that inspires you and why. And we're going to go around and we're going to have everybody share. We're going to share somebody, or you're going to share about someone else's intention, why it's inspiring to you, and how you've seen that teacher actually live that intention, right? So here's the jam with that. Number one, we're saying a core value is discover everyone's story. Why is this value so important to us? Well, because Brooklyn Music Factory is like an inclusive songwriting program. And in songwriting, you're inviting everyone in and everybody has a story to tell. There's not a good, it's not like one story is more valuable than another's. This 5-year-old who's telling the story about how much he loves pizza is just as valuable as the 15-year-old who's talking about her broken heart, right? Like those are two great stories and they deserve a song, right? So you're talking about discover everyone's story, but then you're bringing it home and making it really personal. And when you bring it home and make it really personal, Daniel, now all of a sudden we're digging into a couple of other of our core values. Number one, we're saying check your ego at the door. We're asking everybody to share an intention. That's a personal thing. You got to check your ego at the door to put in a public channel where every other teacher and staff member is going to read what you intend to do. And then number two, the fact that somebody else is pulling out your intention and sharing it brings up another core value, which is be the best version of ourselves or yourself. We're saying, hey, you set this intention, and guess what? Somebody else is observing you trying to live it. That means that you're setting an intention and trying to follow through on it. And back to one of your earlier points about the forum, it's like, and culture specifically, it's like there are so many things or intentions rather that we set that we don't follow through on. But at BMF, one of our core values is be the best version of yourself. You're not going to come in and just phone in the gig. This is not like as many lessons as you can teach and you're done for the week, right? This is something very radically different. And so that's an example of that all staff and how we bake those values into it. So you can think, I think that's good for meetings, but you can think about the type of meeting that you are about to hold in the next week when you're listening to this and be like, wait, was I just going to treat this meeting as getting a bunch of stuff done and checking off an agenda list? Or could
Yeah.
I take 5 minutes in the meeting and reframe it?
We're actually going to cut in right now a clip from one of the all staffs at BMF. This is something that we showed at the Founders Forum event in Brooklyn in April. And so we're just going to cut in a little clip from an all staff where it's kind of a demonstration example of what Nate is talking about, where you can clearly hear him communicating values and purpose, and he's surrounded by all the team members at BMF, many of which I've met and had interactions with and had meals with even. Um, and and so we'll cut that in right now. And I don't know. I think it's actually worth going to YouTube to watch this, just because it's so powerful.
The way it was taught to me is that we cannot actually predict the outcome.
we continuously move through life thinking that we have some control of what's going to happen 1 hour from now. But we can't actually predict what's going to happen 1 hour from now. Ben does an amazing job of trying to keep all of us organized to prepare this all-staff meeting. We meet like once or twice just to prepare these 3 hours, and then, you know, individually we prepare some stuff, and I wrote down notes this time, which was one of my intentions from before. But still, we don't know what's actually going to happen here, right? And so the way it was taught to me is the one thing we can control is the intention we set coming into this, right? My intention coming into this that I wrote this morning was really see every person. That was my one intention. And so that's something I can actually control. I can actually look at UCN and be like, good morning, and see you, even if it's just for a moment, because for the other 2 hours and 30 minutes, I might not get to connect with you. It's just like a moment, right? So to make intentions even more powerful, we do what Josh did, or Laura, combo package, make a sticker of it, and then put it where we can see it. So when we as a community choose to write this down in a channel, it's because we're saying, like Hillary, I want the community to try to help me with this. Follow through on the intention. That's the purpose of that, right? It's when we keep it right here in our head, it's very difficult to follow through on. I'm sure everybody has experience with that. You know, so first of all, yay to us as we're actually writing these things down. And you guys are awesome because you're willing to share this. This is like the job site, and you're willing to share something as vulnerable as, you know, breathe first. That's like to me, it's one of the most fundamental reasons why this place matters. You know, it's because we are willing to share these things that run much deeper than, you know, the piano, you know, or the actual 45-minute lesson where you're like, come on now, Remy, where'd it go? So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this practice that we do seasonally called the Musician's Journey Report. And the Musician's Journey Report is our opportunity to look at each one of the humans that we serve and say, what's the intention that I believe we should set for this person? Where can they be a year from now? Right? And in so doing, one of the reasons why I'm like, Ben, you gotta hold me accountable to the reports, is because even though I have been doing this for 30 plus years and I have a vision for Kenta that's all up in there, it's much more powerful if Nate takes the 20 minutes and writes it down. It's even more powerful if I send it to Atsuko. Way more powerful, right? And it's even more powerful if I share it with you guys, right? It's, of course, sure, it's enough to have it in my head. But our intention, we want to make sure that we are putting ourselves in the best position possible to follow through with Kenta. You dig? And actually, you know, Josh, that's a beautiful example. Remy's a great example. You're like, just trying to keep it exciting. I want one moment of engagement, right? Now what we're saying is, okay, take Remy, lessons learned on Remy this year. What's my intention I'm going to set for where Remy will be this time next year? You dig? So you can take your own personal work and then you just combo package that with everything you've learned about this human, right? So we're going to do one more thought exercise and then we're going to move on. What I'd like us to do, sorry, notes, I'm on back. I'm going to actually ask Davis and Natalie to pull up an example of a musician's journey report maybe from last spring, if you got it. Or it could even, and then if you have one that you could reference from a previous year for that same student, that could be pretty awesome. Does that sound okay, you guys? Can I put you on the spot like that? G-Drive style? Okay. What I would like the rest of us to do is I'd like us to pick 3 students. Just, you're going in your roster, it could be a mini key student, it could be a intermediate level 3 songwriter journey student, it could be your adult piano student. Doesn't matter. But I'd like you to pick 3 students, and I'd like you to be conscious of 3 students that are in different stages of their journey. Right, so maybe a 6-year-old who's on beginner level 2, intermediate level 5, 11-year-old, and then maybe someone who's on the advanced 2 group, right? Okay, and what I want you to do is, I want you to just take a moment and imagine one thing they'll be able to do this time next year that they cannot do now. I don't care if it's on the instrument, I don't care if it's with their brain, and I don't care if it's with their ear. You choose. Dig it? Could be that they're going to be playing on 4 gig songs. You decide. So I'm going to set a 1-minute timer, come up with 3 students, and then just imagine one thing they can do.
So Nate, we've just looked at that staff meeting. What's next? You said there were a couple, you had a number of examples. So we've talked about meetings and in concerts or recitals or songwriting parties. What else you got?
I want to circle back to where I was starting, the idea of delivery on promise, like how you bake your purpose and values into your lesson plans and curriculum. Cool. So the way to kind of think about this is that you've got this why you exist. You've got values that are like the foundation of, the choices you make and a way of reframing basically every action and decision. But you have a whole lot of lessons in classes that are happening behind closed doors, right? And you have to think, what about those lessons? What about those classes can we help to sculpt where it clearly shows our purpose and values, right? So you know that like Brooklyn Music Factory is not just a school, but also a curriculum design company, right? So you've got big music games, you've got our songwriter's journey, and there are tons of schools that use those tools to help deliver on their promise. So I want you to be careful when you listen to my answer and think like, wait, am I just supposed to adopt everything that should I just adopt, the BMF curriculum or the Piano Express curriculum? And if I do that, then I can just adopt their values and purpose. That is precisely the wrong answer. The right answer is you've got a clear purpose and values. And if this curriculum could be useful to delivering on promise, then consider it. But let me tell you how we do it at BMF. So when we walk into the classroom, since inspiring musicians and building community are the essential tagline, it's like our whole purpose simmered down to a tagline. The very first thing that happens in our group classes is a drum circle. Oftentimes, the first thing that a student does when they come into the community room is get invited into a little drum circle. And that is just sort of like a very simple and basic way to begin to build community. That's it. It's just like, hey, everybody, there's nobody who can't whack on a drum. And the minute you start whacking on a drum with others, you're collaborating in some way. Right? So, okay, dig it. So you can kind of take it from there. You can think like, well, what is my purpose at this school? For example, if let's say your purpose is like hyper efficient learning, my students at our school learn more songs than at any other school. Well, then one of the ways that you could start to create a lesson plan that all teachers do would be that when you walk into the room, the very first thing you do is write the agenda and a list of all the songs you're going to learn on the dry erase board. And so the student gets trained in this idea that, oh yeah, we're not just doing one thing. The goal is to get through this checklist of 5 songs. But the action of writing those 5 things on the board is training to culture, right? Because your teachers are the ones that are really going to be living this culture out, this purpose, these values, right? And so just a thing you can like start to contemplate is like, what are some simple ways that we can start and end lessons that will clearly show our purpose, right? So I gave you a couple of examples. Ways that we end our lessons at Brooklyn Music Factory is to have the teacher and the student leave the classroom and come out to the community room and communicate what the goal is for that week. The key is this: the actual communication of the goal we kind of care about, but we don't really care about. What we care about is that teacher comes out into a communal space, because that's the build community piece. Because when that teacher comes out with that
Yes.
student, dig it, that
Yeah.
the teacher will then be like, hey, Otis, do you know Johnny? Johnny's also actually playing on this song with you, and we'll introduce the student to another family or the parent to another parent, and then walk back with their student to the next lesson. So it's that communal moment that actually matters.
Mm.
So that's the piece I'm going to say about lesson plan, curriculum. Think about how to start and end.
Mm. Before we go to the next one, I just want to point out, like, this goes back to what we said at the very beginning of the episode. This gets baked in, but it only gets baked in because you, as the leader, lead it, and it's been baked into you. And it's just like, you could go on for hours with these stories, Nate. Like, you don't even have to rehearse them. You didn't have to sit to prep for this episode. Like, it's just in there. You know what I mean? In the same way that when you're an advanced musician and you're doing your senior recital, at your university, and you've been prepping for this for 1, 2, 3 years, and you sit down at that keyboard, or you pick up that guitar, or you pick up that flute, it just comes out of you. Or if you're improvising or you're playing a song you have memorized, it's just in there. I
Yeah.
used to call it, when I was a kid, I called it ghost fingers. Because
What?
I would be, yeah, because I'd be shocked. I'd be like, how are my hands doing this? I would
Yeah.
look at my hands. It was like, because I would blank out. I would see the music in my head, but I would blank out, and then my hands would still do it. And I was like, how did it do that? And I called it ghost fingers when I was a kid.
Well, I love that. Yeah. It's like that out of body because it's
Yeah,
so inherent.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah. So Nate, do you communicate consistently in the physical space of your school?
Yes, totally. The funny thing is I don't get a lot of time in the classroom anymore, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't even get a lot of time training teachers.
Mm.
Right. Mostly I'm working with Ben and Jessica and the sort of management team, if you will. Right.
Yeah, you're leading the school through your directors, your
Yeah.
director hires, your director roles.
However, like today, I'm going to go in and work the community room for a couple hours before we have our our teen show. Right.
Mm.
And it's sort of like, it's a total gift because it's the easiest job I ever have to do at BMF is hang out with students, jam with them in the community room. I love it. And then of course I love the gigs. That's just one of the most fundamental reasons we even started the joint. But so in the community room or in the hallways, we have a little, coffee station back in the back. Those are like just prime areas to actually sort of model the purpose and the values. And so I gave some community room examples, but so I'm not going to give you that many more or even any more, but I'm going to just ask you to reframe the way you can communicate this. So number one, you do it through actions. Me going up to the drum circle and then inviting a 12-year-old and a 4-year-old to join me, that's taking action on purpose. Right? That's that the other teachers observe it, the parents observe it. I literally just had a parent of BMF this morning who I was hanging out with earlier, and he was like, Nate, I just remember so clearly being impressed early on. His son is now 15 and has been in BMF since he was 7 or something. How you had both a grandparent and a student playing together in a drum circle. And I just remember thinking, this place is magical, right? So you just sort of mentioned that. That's an example of action living purpose, right? The second thing is the words you use. You have to be careful about your words, right? If, like at Brooklyn Music Factory, we're not about efficiency, i.e., you need to learn as many songs as possible in a short amount of time, then don't talk that way, right? If your purpose, like at BMF, is collaboration, then you'll see me in the community room always talking about how impressed I am with so-and-so's child collaborating with somebody else. I'll just always try to reframe, uh, a compliment towards collaboration, or towards the fact that they've strengthened their ears, or that they seem so inspired, or that they've made new friends, whatever it is, but it has to be purpose oriented. And then finally, it's like, this is the easiest thing to do, and you can absolutely start here. Go into Canva and create some fun little posters that basically are like images of your purpose or your values designed in some kind of fun way for you, and put those suckers up on the wall. We 100% did that at BMF for years. We don't do that as much anymore in a literal way. We don't put the values like on a poster and put it on the wall, but we absolutely did it in the beginning when we were training ourselves, Pira and me, on this idea of how important values were.
Right. Yeah. Love that. What's the final one, Nate?
Yeah, final one. I'm not even going to get into the weeds on it, because this episode, you've got plenty to act on right now. But what I want you to think about when you get that purpose and values in place is how you begin at the interview all the way through the annual review. So we just went through a hiring funnel, and we interviewed so many possible teachers for 2 positions. It came down to like a dozen demos, and we just made offers to 2 people. But from the moment they showed up to the interview, we had values and purpose questions in the interview. And those people will then they'll get an offer. Literally on the offer sheet will be a purpose statement, right? From the offer sheet into onboarding and training, obviously that's the golden ticket. That's when you're baking in tons of your purpose and values into training. But then, a year later, they're going to get their first annual review. And literally it's a 360 review. And the questions are like, here's our core value number 1. Talk to us about how you've been able to check your ego at the door in the last year. And they do their own review of themselves based on the values, right? And then we come in and there's a review. It's literally happening next week with Jessica. She's the one who leads it with everybody. And so that's the final idea, is just think about how powerful it could be if you had a clear purpose and values, and that you started at the interview all the way through the review for the life cycle of every staff member.
And I will just say, this is the perfect time to bring back the analogy I made a couple episodes back of the turkey tacos. You have turkey, ground turkey, you cook it up. It's basically flavorless. But I make the best turkey tacos because I put all kinds of spices and all that sort of thing in it. And from the moment that a potential staff member considers joining your school, from the moment a parent discovers your marketing material, there should be such a flavor of what your culture is that it's unmistakable. It will not taste the same if they go to the school down the street or across town, if they work there, or if they enroll their child there. People should taste the culture. And I think, especially with the staff, from the moment they read the job description until they have their first annual review, like it's baked in. A lot of baking and cooking analogies today, Nate.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry, and it's just about lunchtime.
Lunchtime, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Well, Nate, I think our 20-minute episode, I don't know what this is going to get edited down, but it's well over 40 minutes at this point. So another great 20-minute episode we've done.
Yeah,
and
we're crushing it with our New Year's goal.
Right. Halfway through the year, and I think we've made our New Year's goal like 3 times. Anyway, we have one more episode left in the Culture Club series, and we're going to kind of close out the first half of the year with it. We got some other cool episodes coming up here in the very near future, including a school that some school owners that we're going to interview. It might be 2 weeks from now when this episode airs, that have one of the most unique cultures I've ever seen, one of the most unique products I've ever seen, That's going to air in 2 weeks, so definitely don't miss that. It's going to be near the end of June, beginning of July. I can't remember when exactly it airs. But what a great way to follow up the Culture Club series by interviewing these really energetic owners that have designed something really, really unique. And you're going to kind of listen for it when you hear that interview in a few weeks. And as we said before, early bird pricing for the forum is still active. If you're listening to this at some point in the future, go to GregMusicStudio.com/forum. We might be enrolling at that time, or there might be a wait list, but whatever the case, if you're wanting the accountability to build the kind of school that you want to build, you definitely want to check that out. Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll see you all in the next one.